We'd like to get the conversation going. And in getting this conversation going, it is pertinent at this juncture to invite certain individuals that will be seated on this side of the divide to help us make progress with a conversation around this very important summit, Afri-Caribbean Investment Opportunities and Enablers. First, to come on the stage will be Mr. Omoboyede Olusanya, the Group Managing Director of Flour Mills Nigeria, but is ably represented at this occasion by Sadiq Umar, Director, Group Strategy and Stakeholder Relations of Flour Mills and Agro-Allied Group. Please can we welcome him instead to please come over and take a seat.
For our next panelist, we have the GCOO, Mrs. Holding, Holding, Amina Maina. Please, a round of applause for her as she joins us.
She is here in flesh and blood. Please, we can make better that round of applause. And the next person to join us will be Miss Sanya Alleyne, the CEO of Chamber of Industry and Commerce and Kitts and Nevis. There's a round of applause for her.
And to moderate this panel, we have the Director General, Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization. We have Aisha Augie. Please, a round of applause for her.
Whilst Aisha is making her way here, I must tell you that Aisha is a professional Nigerian photographer and a filmmaker based here in Abuja. She is Hausa from Arugungu local government area of Kebbi State in northern Nigeria. She has won an award for Creative Artist of the Year at the 2011 Future Awards. Her work spans across documentary, fashion, aerial photography. She uses juxtaposition in her work as her way of pushing the idea there are always two sides to a story. This comes from her background in photojournalism and mass communication. Her personal projects explore issues of gender and identity influenced by her experience as a female mixed race and mixed tribe individual who struggles to fit in her earlier in life. And Augie is the former special advisor, digital communication strategy to the former Minister of Finance and Budget of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And prior to that appointment, she was the senior special assistant to the governor of Kebbi State, the then governor of Kebbi State, on new media. Aisha Augie leads various developmental initiatives for the advocacy of youth and women empowerment across Nigeria. She today sits pretty very tall as the Director General and CEO of Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization. She's the moderator for this session. Please, a warm round of applause for her. And we'll be leaving you to take charge of affairs for the next, how many minutes do we have for you? I need to look at that. But if not, I'll come to you in writing as to the number of minutes that is allotted to this conversation. Please, can we give the panelists and the moderator another round of applause? Aisha Augie, you have the floor.
Hello, Africa. Hello, Africa. We have to feel that energy, you know, we're full of culture and a lot of noise, right? So hello, Africa. Thank you so much. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, PM Dr. Aminu Eze Adekunle, a.k.a. Dr. Terence Michael, ACL, our ambassadors here present, I would like to say, as the Prime Minister said earlier, please allow me to stand on the order of precedence. In Nigeria, we say stand on existing protocol. That's another thing to learn. Welcome to Nigeria. Welcome to Africa. Welcome home. I would like all three of us here to please give a short introduction as we commence. But I would first want to commend ACL, Aisha, Maina, and the team for putting this together. And we would also love to appreciate the ambassadors who have accepted our invitation to come here today. We're all here today as one. And I'm so happy to speak after the Olori, a beautiful, exceptional, stunning, intelligent woman who has become a really strong character within the creative and cultural space. So before I allow the moderators to begin, I'd just like to say when we look at the level of cultural diplomacy that we have, we learn about each other first through our culture. I think those who have learnt about St. Kitts but have never been there would think about the Caribbean culture, the Caribbean food, the music, coconut water, sugarcane, and I'm really glad that we're here today to hear more about St. Kitts, and we're also able to interact with each other. For those in the room, it's a great opportunity for you to network and see how we can connect with each other moving forward. And with that, I would like to begin with our guest from St. Kitts, Miss Alleyne, please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So I'll first start off by introducing the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce. We are a representative body of the private sector within St. Kitts and Nevis. We represent the manufacturing, construction, entertainment, as well as professional business services. We also represent the distributors and retailers on the island. So it's a diverse portfolio of companies within the chamber. The chamber's role is primarily to inform the private sector of any national policy or legislative reform, and also to be able to input into it. Because the private sector has a place and has a seat at the table to be able to present statistical data, information, and assist in the shaping of national policy. And that I would commend St. Kitts and Nevis for, because it's really a model to marry and to, what I would say, emulate, because other Caribbean territories may not necessarily have such a close relationship between the chamber and government policy formation, which is something I truly and honestly respect. And in terms of the overarching theme, I think I will hand over to my colleague to my right to introduce herself, and then I'll come back and speak on it.
Thank you very much. My name is Amina Maina. I am the Group Chief Operating Officer of MRS Holdings. I'm also the third Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. I am a council member of the Midstream and Downstream Infrastructure Fund, and I am a member of the Presidential Advisory Economic Council. As MRS, thank you. As MRS, I think the first thing I will say is that if you came in a vehicle today, you probably have been in one of our stations. I think we've been making a lot of headlines these days with our stations and how we're trying to make fuel affordable for every Nigerian, and of course the quality. So I sit as the Group Chief Operating Officer of that company. We are in Nigeria. We have a listed company. We are listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And we're also in other African countries. We're in the Republic of Benin, we're in Togo, we're in Ivory Coast, we're in Cameroon. We're looking into Senegal. So we're really a Pan-African oil company. Through, downstream, midstream, we're now venturing into upstream. And one of the things that I hope will come out of this engagement would be our hunger to move to St. Kitts and Nevis and increase the energy efficiency of the country. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be with you all today. Here, ably representing Mr. Boye Olusanya, who is the Group Chief Executive Officer of Flour Mills of Nigeria, or FMN. My name is Sadiq Usman. I'm a Group Director responsible for strategy. FMN's history is as old as Nigeria's post-colonial history. FMN, interestingly, started as a company 2 days before Nigeria's independence in 1960. So we're 65, like Nigeria this year. We've grown to be Nigeria's largest food and agribusiness concern. Amina said you probably have driven in an MRS fueled vehicle today. I can wager that, except our guests, who probably have had an FMN product for breakfast, you all have our products at home through our iconic Golden Penny brand. So, as I said, FMN started in 1960. Today, we're split roughly along 5 verticals. On our food side, we've got a grain business, flour milling, of course, and then we diversified in the late 70s into household foods, which were very much known for pasta, noodles, edible oils, sugar, the basics that you have at home, margarines. We also have an agro-allied group where we have fertilizer, the largest fertilizer blending operations in the country, the largest animal feed and animal nutrition operations in the country through Top Feeds brand. Also diversified into sugar. We have a sugar plantation and sugar refinery in the Apapa port. And we've also diversified into logistics. We've got a fleet of trucks to serve our customers. We manage the bulk terminal of the Apapa port, where we handle our imports and as well as exports to Europe and to South America, hopefully the Caribbean as well soon. And lastly, we're involved in our own power generation, property, logistics, and some other businesses. So we have 23 subsidiaries across the group. And as I said, pleased to be all with you here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our amazing panelists. You know, there is something we say, there's a reason I said you should introduce yourselves. As Africans, we have to learn to tell our own stories. And there's no one better to introduce yourself than you yourself. And we need to do the same within our countries and our interconnectedness with our stories. Obviously, it's Women's Month. I will not proceed without celebrating us women. As you can see, we gave 25% quota on this stage to our he for she. I'm really glad to meet you all and honored to be here with you and the likes of the former Prime Minister of Mauritius, who are exceptional women that have shown us and led the way and inspired us to be who we are today. So we would have to say thank you to the women and congratulations to us. So moving forward, I'll take you back to St. Kitts. We know you are running such an exceptional, diverse agency, as you said, that interconnects with different sectors. What would you bring to the forefront for us today as Nigerians and Africans? How do we connect and bridge this gap from the perspective of your agency?
Aisha, if I may. So if we're speaking about bridging the gap in terms of trade, the Chamber positions itself to be able to be a conduit for information. There are many sectors in which strategically St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as the wider Caribbean, can benefit from closer collaboration with the continent, primarily in the areas of energy. As we probably would have seen on our news media a few days ago, our energy dependency on the United States would have to be redirected because current administration's policies are opening opportunities for St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as the rest of the wider Caribbean, to be able to source traditional forms of energy, such as fossil fuel, from new and traditional markets. But for St. Kitts and Nevis, primarily, renewable energy is the strategic way forward, as the Prime Minister has indicated, through the development of the geothermal facility. And so there is an opportunity to invest in St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as, and I would speak here for the OECS as well, because the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber sits as the only executive of the OECS Business Council, and currently I'm the Vice President of the OBC. And so, speaking for the OECS, there is strategic opportunities for investing in the renewable energy sector, whether it be through on land or on sea solar energy generation, whether it be on land or on sea, wind generation, as well as the possibility of tidal. And so there's an opportunity also for research and development. As the Honorable Dr. Gurib Kareem, sorry, pardon me for mispronouncing your name, would have indicated, there is a need also for enhancing education and strategic relationships in being able to foster greater knowledge sharing and capacity building. And in that space, the education sector is also a strategic space for collaboration between the continent and St. Kitts and Nevis and the wider Caribbean. I think another strategic area of focus would be in the food and beverage sector, primarily looking at it from an import and export perspective. There's a great potential with the growing population on the continent to be able to facilitate the distribution of agro-processed goods to the continent. And as well, it is also a great opportunity for St. Kitts and Nevis and the wider Caribbean to be able to import agricultural products as well to assist in shoring up our food security. And so the Chamber creates an opportunity for interfacing with the private sector in these segments, but more so being able to create relationships between chamber to chamber, and that being not only within the Caribbean in terms of the OECS, that being the OECS Business Council, but also the chambers across CARICOM, which we call CARICHAM, and the relationship between those entities and the national chambers across the continent. And so I do see this as a strategic and meaningful engagement that we have here today, but also an opportunity to work through the chambers to be able to enhance collaboration, B2B, and knowledge sharing.
That was very well said, and it's really great to hear the impact, obviously, that your chamber is having and what it can do for us when it comes to the bridging the gaps. From what you've said now, you started with, let's say, the emphasis on energy and renewable energy. And that takes me to Maina. I know MRS is known for traditional energy, but I would love to know what MRS is doing with regards to strategy, energy, sustainability, and the future of energy, both in Africa and the rest of the world. You're an international organization, and it would be really good to see and hear what you think about this. Thank you.
Okay, so just as I was preparing for this summit, one of the things I found out was that about 93% of the energy needs of St. Kitts is fossil fuel, at least in the last 2 years. So while the drive for renewable energy is ongoing, as you know, there's a whole energy transition phase. But I think one of the things that people always miss or misconstrue is this talk about climate, about fossil fuel, about sustainability. And people forget that you have over 100 different kinds of products that come out of fossil fuel, right? So when people always say, climate change, emissions, the entire emissions from Africa is less than 3%. For us in MRS, yes, primarily what we do is refine fuel, we do lubricants, but even as we do that, you will find that one of the strengths we have today, and you've probably seen videos which we didn't know about and people kept sending to us to say, if you fuel your car in MRS, it goes longer, because we're actually putting emphasis on the quality of the fuel that comes out. We are not blending. All of our product today comes from Dangote refinery. Right, and with the refinery, I think one of the things that the refinery has played up a lot has been the issue of quality. You've got cleaner fuel coming out, so even though it's petrol, but it's much cleaner petrol coming out of the refinery. In terms of energy security as a whole, because I think one of the things the Prime Minister mentioned, and also the former President of Mauritius, was energy security as it impacts development. Right. Today, within the Caribbean communities, I would say there's a lot of discovery, oil discovery. And just sort of to deviate a bit, I would like to put a caveat there just to say that I think the Caribbean countries should watch the oil curse. because we all know that once you start exploration and you get a lot of inflow of funds, it could lead to a lot of problems. So it's one of the things that you probably want to watch and ensure that whatever revenues you get from oil goes to the betterment of the lives of the people. But back to the issue of energy security. Fossil fuel in itself is not a bad thing. I think it just depends on the availability of the resources to get the fuels that you need. We're hearing about renewable energy for St. Kitts because they do have thermal energy at their doorstep, right? But you also can never focus on just one source of energy. You always have to diversify. You always have to have various sources of energy. So even for us, yes, today in Nigeria, everybody talks about oil, but there's a lot of renewable energy also going on, not as big as oil, but there's solar, there's even biofuels. People are making biofuels. So I think when I look at the landscape of St. Kitts, just when I was doing the sugar cane that they used to have, could be a source of fuel, could be a source of real clean fuel. So the question then becomes, are we able to go in there and say, okay, what do you have? How can we invest in some of these things? We need to look at the enablers to say, if you have energy companies, I don't want to say oil companies now, because I think everyone's moving away from just being an oil company to being an energy company. What are the hoops maybe we have to cross? How do we get there? How do we invest? How do we make energy affordable to everyone? Which is one of the things for us as MRS we're doing today. In terms of our pricing, we're not just going for margins. We're saying, how do we make fuel affordable to everybody? Because it's the one thing that impacts everybody's life, right? So for us, energy security is not just theory. It's not just speaking about it. It's about what can you do to ensure that energy is available to everybody. So our focus may be oil, but I think we go beyond just oil. We have a lubricant blending plant. It's the largest in Africa. We don't make noise about that, but for us, it's a fully automated plant. But again, emphasis for us is on clean fuels, sustainability. What do we do? How do we reduce emissions and the things that we're doing? And just thinking about investment in St. Kitts would be one of the things also we'll be looking at to say, okay, if we go there, what do we do? How do we impact the lives of the people? That for us is usually the most important thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. From what I got, we're looking at fossil fuels. For those who are watching and may not know, it's like natural gas, coal, what's it called? Oil, right? Petroleum. And obviously, we're now looking at renewable and other types of energy, which is like ethanol. From what I hear, you can make ethanol out of sugarcane. And that takes me now to flour mills. We have a lot of things that we're talking about. We're obviously expecting MRS to invest in St. Kitts, right? So we need to make sure, like Aisha said earlier, we need to push action. So we're not just here to talk. We would have to make some commitments before we leave this summit in the next couple of days. And that is our hope, leaving this space. So we look forward to the announcement between MRS and St. Kitts moving forward. Thank you. And then I'll now take you to Mr. Usman. Like I said earlier, ethanol from petroleum, from other gases created through agriculture, for example. What is Flour Mill doing with strategy with regards to that? And are we looking at the same kind of commitment between the Caribbean nations and flour mills? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aisha. Well, I think there's two parts to your question. I think the first part is to deal with localization, if I may call it that, and diversification. And the second part is about collaboration. So in terms of localization and diversification, the way I see it is, and I was engaged in a debate by WhatsApp just on my way here from the airport this morning on the issue of cassava. And I think that's a very good context because from cassava, you can actually make ethanol as well. And Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava in the world, probably produces something in the region of 60 million tons of cassava annually. Thailand is the next largest, and it produces 30 million tons. Now, Thailand generates something in the region of $3 billion in terms of value add from cassava. We, unfortunately, we eat all of our cassava. So in terms of export value add, it's probably less than $1 million that we're getting. And, to your point, that just tells you the dormant opportunity that is lying there. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, we at FMN were invested in both the cassava value chain and the sugar. Unfortunately, we're still trying to feed people with the cassava. We haven't quite got around to the other industrial uses of cassava. But without going too technical, the opportunity lies in yield transformation. That's first and foremost. We need to move from 60 million tons to maybe 70 or 80 million tons so that there isn't so much pressure on those, let's assume, give or take, Nigeria is probably the most widely still consumed food in Nigeria, even more than rice. Cassava gari, many people don't know this, but it's probably the most widely consumed food, and it's the most widely grown food in Nigeria. It grows in more states than anything else, even maize. So maybe 120 million Nigerians eat cassava on a weekly basis, I would say, at least once. So we need to get the pressure off those 110, 20 million people and be able to create enough feedstock for industrialization. And there's one or two people doing it. I'm aware, I can see the former governor of Benue State. I know there's a few ethanol plants in Benue State. I know there's in Kogi State. The interesting thing, talking about my debate, is because the pressure to eat cassava in the middle belt is not as great. That's why people go and locate industrial plants of cassava there, because they grow a lot of cassava, but they are not eating as much of it as in certain other parts of the country. So that's where the opportunity exists. Ditto for sugar. I think sugar is a bit more, and now to bring in, the St. Kitts experience and the opportunities here. Sugar is a bit more, I would say, in its formative stage. Nigeria imports about 2 million tons of sugar for its population. That's grown by close to 30-40% in the last decade, and it's growing with population growth, as you can imagine. All of that sugar comes from Brazil today. Although there's a backward integration program in Nigeria, part of which we belong to, and we're trying to grow sugar on the banks of the River Niger, there exists significant opportunity to grow a lot more sugar and process sugar into its various derivatives, whether it's ethanol, whether it's biomass for energy. And I think this is where a collaboration with St. Kitts is possible, because our sugar industry, I think, got effectively decimated in the late 80s, 90s for a variety of reasons. And many people in Nigeria's sugar industry that were trained and were involved in the industry are coming to the end of their working lives. So we have tremendous opportunity and potential to feed, 220 million people and growing, and the wider region, but they do not quite exist the skills in country to be able to develop the sector. And I think this is something that potentially we can cooperate with St. Kitts and Nevis, having been involved in sugar for hundreds of years, and so have tremendous knowledge and skills and know-how.
Thank you so much there. We are all learning a lot as to little things and ways that we can create opportunities. I'm the Director General at the Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization, and it's been a year and probably 3 months now since I commenced. And the amount of information I'm learning about Africa, the Caribbean, other Black nations globally, other African nations globally, and the indigenous ways that we do things that we're losing. So I'll give an example. Ms. Amina is wearing one of our traditional fabrics, right? And the indigenous way of creating it was actually with cassava paste. And we've lost it. As an agency, we've been looking for people that would train, so we can at least protect the indigenous ways and then look for ways to innovate and use these products for other opportunities. And we're losing the history, we're losing the culture, we're losing the original ways that these things were done due to innovation and technology. And not just losing it, because now obviously we're making a commitment, and even under this administration, we're making a commitment to ensure that we protect those indigenous ways while innovating. And that takes me to what you mentioned earlier about research, right, and education. So if you could just say, based on what two of them have said, just add to us as to what St. Kitts and Nevis is looking for within these spaces. Let's try to be as specific as we can. That way, we know those who are watching and may be interested can reach out to you probably before you leave the summit. Thank you.
So in the context of education within the Caribbean, right, we also have a similar traditional model of learning by rote, which we have to pivot from, okay? There is a drive towards digital transformation, right? There is also an adoption within St. Kitts and Nevis and the wider Caribbean to use greater technology, even utilizing artificial intelligence in the education sector, which has been a bit controversial to some extent, and in the educational sector from the tertiary education perspective. So, for instance, the University of the West Indies, which is a 5-island campus, whereby all of the states within the Caribbean are able to send their young graduates according to a specific area to learn a particular technical area, would either go to Barbados, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis has the open campus, Trinidad, Tobago, and now Antigua and Barbuda. They're utilizing AI and integrating it into their studies and integrating it also into how they respond to examination scripts and whatnot. Now, that could be deemed to be, as I said, it's a controversial topic, but it is also a way to open up the mindsets of those of the students there to be able to embrace technology. We cannot shy away from it. It is here, and it's here to stay. The other thing I would indicate is that in terms of moving away from the academic side, but going more to the vocational training, there's definitely a need to invest in vocational training. There are a lot of skill sets that need to be enhanced across the region. Yes, traditional knowledge on certain skill sets such as carpentry, masonry, those kind of things, that needs improving. And also moving away from those traditional forms of knowledge, but going into the higher order knowledge sets in terms of vocational training. So building skill sets in being able to install, maintain, service renewable energy platforms, whether it be solar, whether it be wind turbine, etc. These are the sorts of skill sets that are currently being built within the region, and therefore creates opportunities for persons in the region to also go to the continent and provide those services and knowledge. There is also, the Caribbean has a history of partnering, right, in knowledge sharing, particularly in the oil and gas sector, right? We have the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, which is an industrialized state. They export, one of the top exporters in the United States in terms of petroleum and natural gas. So to touch on Aisha's point, yes, there are forms of fossil fuels that are not necessarily as pollutive, if you want to use that word, that is being exported. So liquefied petroleum, natural gas is an option. But outside of that, Trinidad and Tobago has also been exporting expertise to Nigeria for a number of years in terms of training in the capacity in the oil and gas sector. And that, I think, can continue to be strengthened as an opportunity for collaboration between the regions. And I would indicate just quickly, there's also, when we speak of education, we also speak of being able to facilitate not only academic, technical, and vocational, there's also need for education on market access and market information. So I would have recalled the representative from Afri-Caribbean Bank speaking about their trade hub and information hub. The Caribbean also has a trade hub and information hub through the Caribbean Export Development Agency. And so what needs to also happen is not just information sharing and training in the traditional ways, but also being able to inform private sector about opportunities in other markets that they can go after and be able to not only have market access, but market penetration. And so I'll rest there.
Well said, thank you so much. That's giving us a little bit of a breakdown moving forward. At least we could say we know some of these items. Earlier, we had the Prime Minister say, we are moving from mere spectators to institutionalized, coordinated action. So I really wished we had one of maybe the Minister of Trade on here or the Minister of Transport. That would have been good to help us at least bridge the gaps. But what I do know about Nigeria is we are making those moves. I was at the CARICOM opening in Barbados when it started, and I know the amount of Nigerians, for example, that were there. Obviously, conversations are happening about direct flights to Jamaica. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So there are many intergovernment and interpersonal conversations happening, bilateral conversations happening, multilateral conversations happening. I think the world has found out that Africa is the future, right? And we're looking at the Caribbean and the many islands of the Caribbean. I was so shocked at the connections and the history that I saw there. And I've definitely been in St. Kitts in July. Clap for me, because I've already booked my ticket. But these are all issues that border on how, individual people move forward. So before I move, because we only have like 5 minutes left, I would give you the stage to just at least let us know where to find you for those who are watching us on TV, websites, handles, how do we connect with St. Kitts moving forward. And then I would allow the two others to give us their final thoughts on bridging the gaps on this. I really wish we had more time. But I would leave this handover to you now to let us know how to contact you moving forward. Thank you.
I'll start by saying, feel free to email me at executivedirector@sknchamber.com. It is a challenge. Yes, I speak very quickly. I apologize.
Yeah, we'll do the pidgin version for you over here too. So let's do it quite slowly so people can get it. Thank you.
I can be contacted at executivedirector@sknchamber.com. Additionally, we have an Instagram account, which is SKNCIC2, and a Facebook page, which is also SKNCIC. And we also have a website. So you can find us at www.stkittsandnevischamber.com. So,
thank you. So I'll hand it to our he for she, Mr. Usman. I know we've been in different spaces in the investment space over the years with the work in the past. So I'll just like to have your thoughts before I finalize with Ms. Maina. Thank you.
Well, talking about the theme of the discussion in terms of bridging the gaps, I think to bridge the gaps, we need to build bridges. And this is the start of building a very strong, sturdy, and long-lasting bridge from the continent of Africa to the Caribbean. And I think there was some mention of certain geopolitical and global events that are shaping the way we look at each other. I think I take a leaf from the FMN story. I think we should see it as an opportunity, not as a challenge. The way the global world order is reshaping, I think God is telling the Caribbean, God is telling Africa, this is your time, and you need to move closer together. So I'm very excited by what I'm seeing. And this is the start of something wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now to you, Ms. Maina.
Just taking off from what Sadiq has just said, I'm not sure that we can build bridges if we don't go for the low-hanging fruit. What I would say to everyone and encourage everyone in this room to do, first of all, is to network within the room. Take as much contacts, take as much information as you can. Talking about investments also, I think the first thing we need to probably take away from this is how do we connect Africa and the Caribbeans. It's a 6-hour flight, but we have to go all around the world to get there. So within this room, I'm sure that we've got people who can lend their voices to bridging that gap, and I think that's the first thing we need to do, and that's why I said that's a low-hanging fruit. I would also encourage an exchange program, because we're just talking about where you have people in the oil and gas sector that do exchange programs. That may be something that both countries would want to look at and work on. I'm not sure that would take too much time to get that done or formalized in any way. And I think the biggest stumbling block, which I'm hoping would also be dealt with while we have the Prime Minister here and his delegation, would be the issue of access. I've never understood why we have to go through all the trouble we go through to get visas, right? So if we're talking about bridging continents, there has to be access. And I think that's one of the things that maybe the chamber, I don't know who wants to handle that, will deal with. But in all, I think energy security is an enabler. And we all just need to tap into that and see how we can work together. For us in the industry today, we always say that we don't see competitors, we see collaborators. And I think that has to be the mindset that we all leave this room with. Are we able to collaborate with each other? Can we work? We can't see each other as, opponents. Rather, let's take the example of the opposition working together and put that in business and see beyond where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You've heard from them. I'll just take the opportunity to say that we at the Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization are here to also be a conduit. Ahead of AFCFTA, we're looking at so many aspects creatively and culturally that cuts across both the African community and the Afri-Caribbean community. We have to figure out ways to ensure that we come together to work together. If people can create stuff and they cannot transport it, it is a problem. If you have products and you have nowhere to sell them, it's a problem. If you have human capital that could be utilized for better good, for learning, for interconnectivity when it comes to brain exercises where we exchange information amongst each other that would benefit us as a people and everybody else around us, it's a continuous effort. Our job at the center is to promote, propagate, and preserve our history, culture, civilization, and promote what Africans and Africans globally are doing in contributing to the world's good. And so we're really happy to hear from all of you. And I would like to say thank you again to Aquarian Consult and Aisha Maina for having us here. With that, I do hope we've learned a lot from this panel. And thank you so much for having us. We appreciate having the connections and to the spirit of family. Thank you.
Thank you.